I'm going to say this about every feeling, but sad's a really important one. As I'm laughing.
Newsflash.
As I'm laughing, because there's nothing funny about sadness.
Yeah.
But God, what's funny is that I'm saying it's really important because all eight really do matter.
Yeah.
And this one really matters. I can say that. Can I say that?
Uh-huh.
It really matters.
For sure.
So we're talking about the truth of sadness. Sadness is the truth about what I feel. We'll talk about where that comes from. But the impairment of sadness, if I can't step into the vulnerability of what I'm grieving, I will move towards something called self-pity. You'll explain that. And then demand. But if I can walk through the doorway of my sadness, there are gifts and there's some needs that will be met. The gift of sadness is going to be acceptance. And then the need that's going to be met is called comfort. Again, you're going to see this in all the needs. All the needs happen in relationships. That's me with God and me with you. Mm-hmm. All the impairments, I end up alone.
Yeah.
Self-pity and demand, I'm alone. Acceptance and comfort, I'm connected.
That's right.
Let's talk about sadness.
That's right. Man, sadness, if there's such thing as a hidden gem of the 8 feelings, I think it might be sadness. So take a little bit of time to talk through, even theologically, this feeling of great importance. And in the Bible study we wrote, sadness is so poignant. In John chapter 11, Jesus' friend Lazarus dies, and Jesus had the knowledge, of course, that he was going to resurrect him from the dead, and yet Jesus wept. So it's very powerful. So sadness is the feeling that reminds us that people, places, and things really matter. And when we lose a person, when we lose a place, a location, when we lose a thing like a vision, a dream, a hope, an expectation, when we lose that, we have this natural thing that happens called sadness. And so sadness is the feeling, grief is the condition, and lament is the expression. And so you see all through Scripture these expressions of great loss, and sadness is an important marker in life. We have no experience emotionally more commonly than we have the experience of sadness, because we lose something every day. We are having a blast making these videos, and we're losing something about where we're not. We're not home with our families. We're not doing other things. We're not out in the sunshine today. And so everything we do is going to entail some kind of loss. And so a very important thing to remember, in the book of Ecclesiastes, the writer of Ecclesiastes says something really important. He says that God has placed eternity in the heart of humankind. Men and women, boys and girls, walk around with something inside of them that says there's something eternal about life. Life matters, and life on earth matters, and life in eternity matters. And so he then makes almost a confusing statement in the next verse. He says, and, it's a paraphrase, you're never going to figure that out. You carry eternity, and you're not going to use your thinking brain to figure out the end from the beginning. So here's what we know intuitively. Part of the carrying eternity in our hearts, we know intuitively, Jeff, that every relationship we have on earth ends painfully. Ultimately, death, if nothing else. Estrangement, divorce, abandonment. We drift apart, different seasons of life. Like all these things happen, and we intuitively know that we're going to lose ultimately, and we have to be willing to have sadness.
I tell guys all the time, if you live long enough, you're going to lose everyone and everything that mattered to you.
Yeah.
If you live long enough.
That's right.
And you know, I'm kind of at that age now where most of the guys I work with, no, not most, all the guys I work with are younger than me. And so I'm talking openly with them about the things that I am grieving, even in what my body will or won't do that it used to be able to do easily, whatever, like little things that are big things even. But life is about a succession of losses toward an eventual gain, but there's also losses on the way.
Yes. And therefore, if we don't accept sadness as part of what I do as a human, we will not attach, because we carry with us this understanding, whether it's my body, whatever it may be, I'm going to be in a state of loss. And if I'm unwilling to deal with that loss through the feeling of sadness and grief and lament, I won't attach. And the deeper I attach, the deeper the loss. So this acceptance is so important, to know that to live is to lose. It's not only loss, but like you said, Jeff, if we live long enough, everything will be lost. And so if I'm willing to attach deeply, recognizing internally, whatever this is, this relationship, this place, this dream, this whatever, it's eventually going to go away. If I can accept that, live with the truth, the what feels like turmoil, to say, I want this so badly, I love him or her so deeply, I love this place and this dream so much, and ultimately I will lose this. If we can accept that, then this beautiful need is revealed in us, called comfort. And comfort sometimes can be kind of understood as being, hey, they're there, it'll be okay, I just want to comfort you. Comfort has much more to do with fortification. If you notice the suffix of the word comfort, it's fort. And so it means to be fortified by presence. And so if I'm going to comfort my friend Jeff, I'm going to sit with you in a way that it may include like, hey, Jeff, I'm so sorry. I do want to comfort you, but also my comfort is fortifying you. It strengthens you. Mm-hmm. Not to get up and get rolling immediately, but to say, my friend Phil, but go the other way, obviously. My friend Jeff is sitting with me, and I am being strengthened in the internal world to be able to absorb this loss. And when it's time, not to move on, but to move forward with the course God has set out for me.
So I can remember just being really confused. I had two great losses. I've had more than that. When my dad died, and my mom died. Mm-hmm. What was so confusing when my dad died was because I really didn't ever have my dad. Mm-hmm. So when he died, I didn't know what to do with the kind of sadness I was experiencing. It was almost like a loss of something I'd never had, mm-hmm. and now I never was gonna have.
Yeah.
And it felt like a little bit of a relief that I didn't have to grieve that anymore, that it was kind of like final. And it was a weird kind of sad, but it was still sad. When my mom died, I wept through it. Mm-hmm. Because I'd had her, and now in this life, I wasn't gonna have her. Yeah. And oddly, in my grief, I was able to touch her, mm-hmm. because it helped me pay attention to how much she had mattered, yeah. which is why it was such a deep level of grief. Now watch this. I think sometimes, and by the way, I'm not Eeyore, and being aware of your sadness doesn't mean you're sad sack. It does mean, because I think the way we work, our heart works like a vice, like that opens like this, mm-hmm. and we're so afraid of going down into the grief, but what we don't realize is that if we close the bottom, we're also closing down the top. Mm-hmm. And so if we can't go down and grieve, we also can't go to the top end to actually give and to jump into a relationship and to really care and be attached, which, by the way, in my story where I came from, okay, I really learned how to not really care a whole lot so that I wouldn't have to grieve a loss. That's so right. Part of my learning has been how to actually give myself in a relationship. Does that make sense?
Oh, it sure does. And you're talking about the two aspects of grief. It comes particularly in human relationships as opposed to losing a dream, for example. Yeah. But you mentioned the difference between, it's the same sadness, but one aspect of sadness is with your dad, like you're never going to have what you didn't have. You're grieving what you didn't have. Mm-hmm. With your mom, it's like you were grieving what you did have and will never have on earth again. Yeah. Both very important parts of sadness. And so I know I joined the ranks of grandfatherhood 3 weeks ago. Okay. And so best thing ever.
7 times I've been there already.
Well, yeah. I happen to know a story about you, and one of those 7 having to do with sadness. It's just such a tender, Jeff, beautiful picture of you as a grandfather of your grandson. And I just want you to tell a story about how that happened.
So one of my daughters, she's married to a Navy pilot, and he was a Navy pilot, and he was deployed. And so there was a period of time where we decided that her, and at the time there were 3 youngins, were going to come move in with us for that year. So my daughter and her 3 kids moved in with us. And Dad was going to be gone he was going to pop in and out, but mostly be gone for a year. And I remember one particular morning, it was the day after Dad had said goodbye. So he had put them down, tears. It was his second deployment, so the older kids had already, they were like 7, that kind of age. They'd already been through this before, so they knew what was coming. as much as a child can. And the next morning, he's gone, Dad's gone. I walk down into my kitchen to get ready to leave for work. And I see my young grandson sitting over there at the kitchen table. He's already up, okay? And he's sitting at that table at the kitchen, and he's just like this.
And man, does that ever say sadness? Oh, God.
I love the quote Kurt Thompson says, "We come into the world looking for somebody looking for us." And in that moment, I was looking for my grandson. And what Kurt Thompson means by that is we're looking for someone who's looking for us emotionally, which goes back to what I said even about when I grew up in my household being so lonely. Emotionally looking for me. And I'm looking at that grandson, and he's like this, and I'm putting together the story. I'm the grown up, and I'm thinking he's sad about his dad, blah, 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 blah. By the way, I'm in a hurry. I got to get to work. I'm going to be late. I'm going to hit Nashville rush hour. All this is going on. And I'm looking at my grandson like this. And I walked over to him, and I said, hey, what's going on, little buddy? And he said this. He said, "Grandpa, I'm sad." Now I'm thinking, his dad's gone, all that's going on, right? And there's so many things I'm tempted to do in that moment. I don't want him to be sad. So I'm afraid I'm gonna have to leave, all that. But I looked at him and I said, "Samuel, I want to be curious." I said, "Samuel, tell me more about that." In fact, it actually goes back to what I wish I'd have said when we talked about loneliness. The question for Brenda would have been, tell me more about your loneliness. Anyway, so I go to Samuel, I say, "Hey, well, tell me more about that, little buddy." And I said, "What are you sad about?" And he said, "Grandpa, I don't want you to go to work." Now I got all kind of stuff going on. I got to go to work. He's sad about me going to work. Now, in that moment, there's so many things you think about what you do with a kid like that. Like, "Oh, Samuel, I'll be home later. We're going to do this when I get home. You'll be fine." Distract him with something, give him a toy, go turn on a movie, give him a Pop-Tart, something, like just distract him, medicate him, kind of usher him into addicthood, whatever it was I'm going to do to keep him away from being sad, okay? But in that moment, I remember going, he's sad. Now, he doesn't know whether it's about his dad or about Grandpa leaving for work. All he knows is he doesn't want to be there alone, and he's sad. He says, I don't want you to go to work." So then I just started pulling the thread on the sweater. And I went over to get next to him, and he didn't want me to near him. Like I got next to him, and I could tell him to pull away a little bit, so I didn't rush him. I didn't force in. And I said, "Samuel," I said, "tell me more." I said, "Tell me what we would have done." I said, "I have to go to work, Samuel, and I'm sad too." That's what I told him. I said, "I'm sad too.
Yeah.
I'm so sad I have to leave for work." I said, "But if I hadn't have to leave for work," I said, "what would we have done this morning? Like, tell me what we could have been doing." Like, I wanted him to name the loss. "Tell me about your sadness." So he started listing it. He had a whole list of what we would have been doing on the floor in the playroom or outside in the yard or whatever. Like, these are the things he's grieving because I'm walking out the door. And he woke up, regardless of what happened the night before with his dad, he woke up dreaming about having a morning of what he was going to do to play with me. And he wasn't going to get to do any of it because I was leaving. Okay, he just had someone leave the night before. I had him naming all that. Now, as he's naming it, he's actually letting me get closer to him. Okay? He eventually, I don't even know how it happened. The way it ended up, he is on my lap, legs wrapped around my waist, head tucked in next to my face, my arms around him, and my hands are on his back. And I said, "Samuel, it's okay to be sad. I wish we could have done all those things this morning. And I don't want to have to leave to go to work either." And I said, "You know what this is right here, Samuel?" And I was just rubbing his back, and we were holding each other. I said, "This is called comfort." Comfort. Now, here's what we all know. Within 30 minutes of me leaving for work, okay, it doesn't mean he didn't care about me leaving. It doesn't mean he doesn't care about his dad leaving the night before. Within 30 minutes of me leaving for work, what do you think Samuel was doing?
I imagine he was playing.
Oh, playing his heart out, laughing, fun, because he's resilient. Still a child. He was able to grieve the loss and then go move into the rest of his life that day.
That's right.
And then when I came home, I showed up with him. But that was a beautiful picture to me of what happens when we actually, and kids are just better at this than us because they haven't learned how not to do it the way we learned how not to do it.
That's right.
And by the way, it was a picture to me of what life looks like and can look like for me as an adult. If I will grieve my losses, tell the truth about them, let someone comfort me in them, I don't get stuck. And I want you to talk about apathy and demand, but we don't get stuck. We actually move through it, and then it gives us the capacity to keep living.
That's right. So that I've used the word powerful a lot. That really is a powerful story. What it unwraps is, if that had not happened, we don't know exactly what would have happened, but it would have looked something like your grandson, Samuel, remaining in this place he was. It reminds me of my son, when he was littler, had a hamster, and we bought those little balls, the little hamster ran around the ball. Yeah. What happens when we're in these places of impairment? It's like a hamster in a ball. He would have been in his ball. He wouldn't let you close to him at first. This little ball, and that little ball can be made of a thing called self-pity. What self-pity is, it sounds like an ugly phrase, an ugly word. All self-pity is I'm having to comfort myself in my sadness, and we are not made to do blank myself. There's nothing wrong with solitude and being alone or in my study or in the woods or somewhere. That's different. That's solitude. But self-pity would be, Grandpa runs through the room. He goes, "Hey, sorry," throws him. I love escorting into addicthood. That's a new one. I know it's coming. But to escort them into addicthood, to anesthetize them in some way. Food, distraction, amusement, screens. And that would have put Samuel, that would have thickened the wall of the hamster ball around him, and he would be comforting himself. And so rather than experiencing self-condemnation for self-pity, we can look at self-pity as, I don't have access to anyone, or I'm unwilling to have access to someone that grieves with me. And lament, one of the reasons the Psalms are so powerful is that David's writing that lament out. The psalmist is writing that lament out, and we're reading that lament and going, yes, me too. And so what he was doing, when he got in your lap, he was saying, I am strengthened and fortified, and I know what this feels like. I can now have my sadness and move through that sadness into accepting Grandpa's got to go to work, and I can play, I can do whatever I'm doing. And if you had not done that with him, he had not had a place to do his sadness with and self-pity, it would have moved even further over into this demand. And demand, if humans stay in self-pity long enough, it ends up being that I begin to demand that life be a certain way for me to engage. I've suffered a loss. I'm not lamenting that. I've been nursing this self-pity. That ball around me has gotten so thick that before I come out of my ball and re-engage relationally, I demand that it be a certain way. You guarantee me I'm not going to be hurt again. You guarantee me nothing's going to happen. Those kinds of things. It could be a really ugly place. And so often, this is a little bonus, so often children will act out, and we think they're just being rebellious or they're just being this or that, when actually they may be living in demand that life work a certain way because of their sadness and loss. So this feeling, we spent a little more time on this one, but it is so key to being able to attach relationally, that if we are unwilling to grieve loss that is inevitable in life, we will not attach. We'll end up in these really isolated places.
Hey, can you say one more thing? We always want to minimize the loss so we don't have to be sad.
Yeah.
And how the brain doesn't distinguish that there's always going to be people that have it worse off.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's how the brain works. And I tell people, like, I'm pretty sure that the culture and economy we live in, probably 98% of the rest of the world has it worse. Yeah. And the part of the brain that registers relationship, called the limbic brain, it sounds like a weird way to say this, it doesn't care about all those other people. Our brain's job is to take care of us. Now, we do care with other parts of the brain, but it's so important, Jeff, to say that, like, level of acuity is not what your heart and brain are keeping track of.
That's right.
It's the fact that it's happening. That's an important piece there too. So sadness, a real key to not only accepting life on life's terms, but attaching really deeply relationally.